All right, so now on to theorem one, which is actually the fundamental theorem of calculus. So if we have some function f, it's a continuous function on the closed interval from a to b, and capital F is the antiderivative of little f, then the integral from a to b of little f of x dx is equal to f of, or capital F of b minus capital F of a. So basically, we find the antiderivative and we plug in a and b and we take the b minus the a because the b is the larger and the A is the smaller. So we're going from A to B. Okay, so if we look on a curve, however the curve looks, we're going to go from A to B is how it works. All right. Now, by the fundamental theorem, we can evaluate, that pretty easily, and then exactly whenever we can find an antiderivative, capital F of x of little f of x. So we have to be able to find it pretty easily, otherwise it's kind of hard. Now, and all we have to do is we just take that capital F of b minus the capital F of a. Now, if we have some other function, capital G of x is the antiderivative of f of x, what we can have different c values, remember? Then what we can say is, well, then g of x is going to be some capital F of x plus c for some constant c. And so that just means we've changed our this function by adding c to it to get the g of x. Well, then when you take g of b minus g of a, that's going to be f of b plus c minus f of a plus c. And guess what? Our c cancels our c, and we get f of b minus f of a. So basically, any antiderivative of little f of x can be used in the fundamental theorem. One generally chooses the simplest antiderivative by letting c equal 0. And that's kind of the key. We're going to let c equal 0. Then since any other value of c will drop out, computing the difference, that's the key piece. And so then we just get f of b minus f of a. Now, when we evaluate these definite integrals by the fundamental theorem, we're going to use the notation capital F of x and then a line a to b. And so we're saying we're taking the whatever we integrated and we got our antiderivative, and we're going to evaluate it from a to b. Okay, so that's kind of what it represents. And so that's how we're going to write it if we are going to write it out. But basically it looks like f of b minus f of a once you do this. So this gives us that. Okay. All right, so let's evaluate this. And so we're going from 1 to 3, 4x minus 2e to the x plus 5 over x dx. All right, so remember, we can just think about this as, this piece, and this piece. We're going to sort them out. And so we can look at it all at one time, not actually rewrite it, 3 different times or whatever. We're just going to say, okay, well, first off, we know we can pull out the 4. So we're going to have a 4. And then we're going to have what? Well, then we're going to have x squared over 2, right? Now what? Minus 2. Now we can pull it out. Now the antiderivative of e to the x is, well, it's e to the x. So far, so good. Now we can say, okay, well, let's pull out the 5. Now we have 1 over x. The antiderivative of that's going to be what? Well, that's going to be the ln absolute value of x. And if we use our notation we just looked at, we're going to evaluate that from 1 to 3. Okay, so when we write this, we're going to say, okay, well, let's look at this. Can we cancel anything first? That's going to make our life a lot easier. So that 2 will go in here once. Then we'll have a 2 here. That's all we can do, I guess. So sometimes you can cancel more, sometimes you can't. So we're going to have to start with 2 times a 3 squared. And then we have minus 2e to the 3. Then plus 5 ln. Well, 3 is positive, so we don't have to worry about that. So just ln of 3. And so we have that first part. And now we subtract off. Now we have 2 times 1 squared, and then minus 2e to the 1 plus 5 ln of 1. Okay. Now, because I don't want to type all that in by hand on the calculator on the screen, you just plug all that in, and what you should get is a negative 13.241 if we round to 3 decimal places. And so that's going to be the common thing here. We're usually going to round these to 3 decimal places as we go, unless it says to do otherwise. Sometimes if you're doing dollars and cents, well, then you round it to 2 decimal places for cents. So that'll be a key. You have to kind of pay attention to what they're asking for, and then you go from there. All right, let's pause there and come back for more.